Hello, how's everyone doing? We've got an exciting WavesTalk panel here with some great panelists. First, I'd like to welcome out Shoaib Makani, CEO and founder of Keep Truckin'. We've got David Dolan, Managing Director of DSC Advisement, and we've got Brad Hollister, CEO at Swanlead. How's everyone doing?
Great.
So, what we're going to do here, just for the format, you guys have seen it, but we're going to go through some presentations and talk about the past, present, and future of what technology is doing to the freight markets. So Shoaib, what we'd like you to do is reflect a little bit on 2018 and the year that was and what that's meant to you and what you're seeing in the market. Dave, it'll be great for you to kind of take a look at what's coming up, for the present. We'll consider that 2019 and what the outlook looks like from an investment and advisory perspective. And then Brad, take us out there into the future. Let's have some fun with it and see where everything goes. So, Shoaib, it's all yours.
Great. Thanks for having me. My name is Shoaib Makani. I'm founder and CEO of Keep Truckin'. We set out 5 years ago to build a modern fleet management platform for the trucking industry. In the process, we have connected and brought online more than 500,000 drivers and trucks. We've been recognized for our work by not just the trucking industry, but also broadly the technology industry, and been recognized as a leading cloud vendor. And we're building really a team that can build on top of the data that we've collected to drive efficiency for our customers. And have recruited folks from Google and Amazon and Uber, folks who really understand the value of data and how to apply it to improve efficiency in business. We started with our electronic logging device and electronic logbook app. As you all know, 2018 was the year of the ELD mandate. A long way coming. It took time for the industry to adjust and adopt, but in the process, hundreds of thousands of drivers and trucks that were offline are now connected, and the data that has been unlocked has incredible potential to drive efficiency and safety and reliability for this business. Most recently, we introduced our dash cam. Again, our goal is to build a modern fleet management solution that spans compliance, telematics, and video monitoring, and this is the first step in that direction. It is a forward-facing camera, allows the driver to sort of manage their safety, allows the fleet manager to get visibility into life on the road. And we believe that now with the ELD mandate in place, the prerequisite, the foundation has been laid for further connectivity. Every single commercial vehicle, every single truck on the road should have a connected dash cam, and we're bringing that about. And then soon, here in the next few months, we're going to be introducing our trailer gateway. So this will, the first step was bring the truck and the driver online. Next, it's the trailer and the cargo. We'll be building a number of satellite sensors that surround this gateway, a temperature sensor, cargo sensor, door sensors, again, to bring not just the driver, but also the goods online in the supply chain. And most recently, we've launched and announced our app marketplace. And I think it's worth recognizing, again, now that the ELD mandate has gone into effect and drivers and trucks are connected, there is significant value in that data and being able to integrate that data into your business systems. We've built a great ecosystem of third-party developers, TMS vendors, logistics providers, insurance companies who are leveraging that data to drive more value for our customers, for trucking companies. And then, just to recap here, our goal is to bring the supply chain online, specifically focused on asset-based carriers. Bringing trucks, drivers, and trailers online is our goal. The first step is that data connection layer, the hardware and the software that connects those drivers. Next, it's how can we actually drive intelligence on top of that data? And that's where machine learning plays a really, really big role. And we've built a team that has deep experience in machine learning, and we're starting to see some of the applications of that. Here you'll see some of the work we're doing on intelligent geofencing. We actually have an understanding of where drivers are, where they're idling, where they're going across our entire network. and we're able to actually identify this is where your trucks stop, and this is how much time they spend. These are the shippers potentially to avoid. This data has not been available and accessible to this industry, and now with the advent of the mandate, it is now possible. The data is unlocked, and we're driving applications on top. Another one is automatic video analysis. So we have the dash cam. We can actually go further. We can go beyond just showing you, hey, this is what happened. We can actually help you, the fleet manager, understand exactly who was responsible in a programmatic way, and then help you then coach that driver and make them more safe on the road. So just a few applications of machine learning, but really, not to steal your thunder, but that to us is the future. The past was the mandate, and where we're looking forward to is how do we leverage that data to drive safety, efficiency, and reliability in the trucking industry. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dave Dolan. I am a managing director at DCS Advisory. I want to thank Craig for having me and Eric for moderating. I'm not an operator, I'm not a technologist, and I'm not even really a user of these technologies. What I do is I help people raise capital for their businesses and then eventually sell them to the larger strategics or private equity firms in the world. I say that up front so you can understand that my bias and the lens through which I'm approaching what is now, what is tomorrow, as we answer these questions with, it's about M&A, it's about capital raising, it's about what I'm hearing from the people I work with that they're looking for. And that's not to say that there's not just a whole lot going on here. There is, and the presentations from yesterday and today have been awesome. It's kind of beaten to death a little bit of what I wanted to talk about candidly, but there's a lot going on, and it starts with visibility, and it starts with data, and then it eventually becomes what can we do with that data, right? There's also a lot of noise, and in some respects it's created by the folks in this room. Big venture raises, big valuations, and those are all fun and good. I don't want to put them down or anything, but there's a lot going on in this market that is still faxes, phone calls, Excel spreadsheets, whiteboards. And we've been a laggard with technology adoption for a long time, the last 3 to 5 years maybe excluded from that, but there's still some low-hanging fruit that we can carve out that are really funding a lot of the larger capital raises or acquisition events. I had a bunch of awesome notes to talk about what we're seeing and the challenges in the market, but if you were here yesterday, you heard about these about 5 times. It's the challenges that operators are facing in terms of shifting user expectations, the driver shortage and the capacity crunch that's creating, the onset of new technologies within the 3PLs and the brokers, and then of course, as we think about the connected truck and autonomous vehicles, when and how is that a reality? I think there are a lot of smarter people, and maybe we can save time for Q&A. I won't go too deep, but I use that to help me think about where to spend my time and what am I looking for in companies in this market. And to me, it comes down to visibility, optimization and automation of legacy workflows. And if you get those 2 things right, then it's analytics, it's machine learning, and it's AI. And a lot of this has been covered, but and actually some of it was covered by Michael Lewis. The first time I'll ever be able to say that Michael Lewis stole my thunder, but I think it's worth repeating that it starts with being able to see your assets and understand where they are and the limitations around them. IoT is something that we all speak with and speak about on a day-to-day basis, but it's still nascent in terms of its application out there. Data is still stuck in silos that people are looking at 2-3 days, 2-3 weeks late. You can't make predictive decisions around that. You can't even make what happened decision on that on time, right? So it starts with getting the data out, getting better visibility. And then what I look for in companies is, can you optimize the workflows? If you bring it all into the same spot, is there an automation exercise that you could put in place? You heard yesterday, probably 10 different groups talk about digital freight matching or automating the payments functions at the 3PLs and the brokers. We've been talking about that a long time, but I think it's close now, if not a reality. And then I always say, if you can get the data right, then you can run analytics on it. Right now, I feel like a lot of the companies the last couple of years have been pitching big data, pitching analytics. We can do, these amazing optimization exercise of the trucking network with that, but in some respects, we're still garbage in, garbage out. And what I've heard the last 2 days are a lot of folks that have been able to help me understand it, that there is an integrated solution coming that's going to connect all these different data silos. And there's a lot of greenfield left to do there. Don't let everybody you've heard the last 2 days convince you that there's not a lot of work left to do. There's a lot of good businesses to be built doing this. And the folks that can bring together those three capabilities are who I'm working with. And I've been lucky enough to work with MacroPoint and TruckStop and AOK and GPS Insight. And for me, it's those type of companies. The last slide is a lot of M&A activity that we can talk about as part of Q&A.
Good afternoon, guys. Brad Hollister, CEO of SwanLeap. Sitting in this conference this week, we've heard so many great ideas from so many great people, and the technology has caught up, like the ability to make a stack with very limited limitations of back technology or old technologies or licensing of databases. All this stuff makes this stuff real. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, you remember like watching the old George Jetson cartoons? Like the bed lifts up and puts him on a conveyor belt and like washes his hair and brushes his teeth and dresses him, shoves food down in his mouth and puts him in the car or the spaceship and flies him to the office, right? I mean, that's kind of what we heard from my perspective, covering the future of transportation here, of transportation technology. I have an Amazon Echo in my house. I have Alexa, right? How do I get to George Jetson, like, just push me out the door and load me in my spaceship and send me to work? And that's really what we want to talk about a little bit here as future. SwanLeap, we are an artificial intelligence TMS. We took a look at the state of landscape of TMSs, and in 2013 couldn't believe what gets passed off as award-winning, leading innovation, all that kind of stuff. We couldn't believe it. I think if I was a major e-commerce company today, I would like to know what we shipped last week. That can't be done right now in parcel. There's not a company that can tell a $500 million parcel shipper what they shipped last week yet, because they're still crunching the metadata. They can't drill into it. The UPS data is way too big to even open on a computer, let alone a server. Let alone now, let's compare last week to the same period the year before. That's impossible. I'm here to tell the audience that is an impossible metric for a company to do live right now. And we are at a very interesting crossroads as a company in what we tolerate for TMS technology. Most TMSs are still loading rates into a platform and creating business rules and spitting out a result at the end of it and dumping the data because they're on premise. Our marketing director sitting up here is, helped me launch a slogan: no rules, no business rules. Because all the little intricacies of the order, the hints, the clues of an order that triggers business rules can be done with AI. But that message doesn't resonate to enterprise and medium market yet. They're like, wait a minute, but how are we going to manage these business rules? And so we're at a very interesting place as looking at all of the wonderful innovations here and how we're going to actually plug that into big enough shippers that allow you to scale your business and actually have a healthy business. And so that's kind of the focus here of moving forward, in looking at the future of our space. Many of you are talking to shippers that are even like, let's say in terms of revenue, maybe a $10 million revenue shipper, maybe shipping revenues, maybe $500,000 or less. The expectation for automation in those shippers is incredible. Like, we talk to these guys and I'm like, are you kidding me? You were doing stuff on Excel spreadsheets. Now you just want this stuff to be spit out or the result? I mean, there's a big difference. And that's a very expensive transition. But the point is a lot of the new technologies, innovations, ideas that we've seen here in this last 2 days are not going to be possible at a large enough scale until we address the underlying problem of the limiting of the platform, the limitations that are out there of platforms. We can't do this stuff in the database structures that we have. We as an industry need to be a little bit more assertive by not letting a company that has a database structure that was built in the 1990s just host it on a server in some state and say they're a cloud system. That's not what the cloud is. Try to process 1 million packages. That's what we're talking about. That's the future. That's a very difficult thing to do, and we are very, very far from that as a widely accepted a solution out there in the market. And that's what I rather than launch into a little bit of a commercial about Swan Leaf, just talk a little bit more about what we see as the future, getting to the future and making all of these wonderful ideas actually a reality. We need to go back and rip out the architecture that we even have in our own companies, let alone as a transportation industry. So I'll turn it back to you, Eric.
No, that's awesome. And I've always wanted my own Rosie the Robot doing everything for me. That sounds incredible. And I am also disappointed that we're not there yet. But on that point, you know, in talking about, you know, automated activity that humans do, right? So let's go back to drivers and talk about the present, which is, you know, 2018. And to think that this year is almost done went by in a blink of an eye for us. I don't know how everyone else feels about that. But, you know, Shoaib, you know, with the mandate that kicked in and what that did for data capture is obviously unbelievable, and that creates this whole IoT market and ecosystem. But, you know, from a driver's perspective, what have you seen in your feedback from carriers that have onboarded your technology where my assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that drivers would be resistant at first and they wouldn't want this invasive technology, and then, you know, what kind of journey did that take them on? Did they eventually love it? What kind of feedback do they get? Are you seeing adoption challenges? You know, what was that experience like, especially as it became a mandate for them to say, hey, it's just more than an ELD, we're doing something a little bit different here. What's that like?
Yeah, so there was definitely resistance to the concept of the mandate. I think, you know, those who have small trucking companies or owner-operators, they've chosen that lifestyle for a particular reason. They want, you know, the freedom and independence to operate. But I think as the mandate took hold and the actual technology got deployed, even those who were most resistant have sort of recognized that it actually doesn't constrain you. It gives you the flexibility to operate within the hours of service rules, but actually relieves a lot of the burden of having to manage compliance, be out of compliance, and fundamentally automate workflows, right? I think the drivers themselves are recognizing that these tools are there to aid them, not to sort of control them. And then, of course, fleets are recognizing the value of the data that becomes unlocked. Right? You go from a world where you don't know where your truck is, you don't know how much time your driver has available to drive, you don't know if they're on track, to now you have complete visibility into your assets and your drivers. And then you can sort of transfer that visibility to your shippers, to your customers, and actually deliver a better end-user experience. And I think drivers actually recognize that. It creates predictability in the supply chain for shippers, but also for themselves. And that, I think, is the future. And it'll both improve the life of the driver, but also make this business fundamentally more efficient. That is our point of view.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I totally see that. You know, so as you look at that value, you know, Dave, and obviously, you know, Shoaib, you know, your company is doing great things and well funded. But, you know, let's kind of flip that a little bit. And Dave, you know, to your point, you mentioned you hear a lot of noise. And, you know, sometimes people are, you know, we talk backstage a little bit, trying to fix problems that either don't need so much fixing or are already in a state that, you know, it wouldn't generate a lot of value for the ultimate end stakeholders. So instead of saying what you're looking for, because I think that makes a lot of sense, what have you learned that you want to stay away from? What things are you seeing that you're getting presented all the time and you just feel that, man, another one of these, I don't want to see another one of these again. What's that like for you?
Well, I like companies with revenue, but look, I think the key is data, right? And folks that are finding ways to get data into people's hands to make decisions quicker, whether that's maybe predictive, but even just let me fix the challenges that I'm dealing with right now, today. I feel like those are going to be the most valuable companies out there. And if you combine data with a marketplace or an ecosystem where everybody's giving you their data to then optimize, to share, and to help the group make better decisions, that's kind of the holy grail, right? And I don't know that I can necessarily tell you what's not going to work, because 5 years ago I would have told you half the companies we're talking about now don't work, right? So I think you got to be in front of it, and by no means am I trying to diminish some of the opportunities here. I keep coming back to there's a lot of stuff that still isn't broken, and I don't want to sound like the old man, uphill in the snow both ways type of thing, but when people are still using whiteboards and magnet boards, and I mentioned fax machines, EDI is still a big part of this industry, right? I just think that there's a lot of new technologies that automate that, and we heard some really good presentations yesterday about it.
Sure thing. Well, and with all of that data and potential for machine learning, and even with paperwork, right? We saw companies here like HubTran and Vector doing really cool things with image recognition and machine learning. All of that data goes somewhere and lives, and data is being ingested at rapid speeds right now. And Brad, to your point earlier about that analytics and knowing what happened last week, going from descriptive and understanding what happened to predictive and what will happen, and then perhaps prescriptive, how do I make things happen, right? And getting to those kind of analytical capabilities, the Amazon effect of, hey, based on your preferences, I think this is the next logical choice for you. You mentioned data warehousing and visibility as a challenge. So how do you see the future markets, taking ELD data, data being generated by these, new investments that Dave is investing in, and all of these businesses that generate? Do you see the data being centralized? I don't want to go as far as talk about blockchain, because that can go too far for right now. But along the lines of all of that information, what are your thoughts on how to ingest it better? Does each company need to hire a chief data scientist? Is this going to be palatable? You mentioned all the Excel files that are going back and forth. What do you see as solutions there for massive data ingestion, as well as people that are, let's call Excel, quote unquote, off the grid? How do you fix that issue to actually create meaningful future analytics around this massive data?
Well, first of all, on the analytics piece, I want to clarify, like when I said you can't see what you did last week and period before, truckload, that's super simple. LTL, a little bit easier as well. But I was talking about for parcel. I think to answer your question regarding data scientists and all that kind of stuff, of course, that's where all the big companies are going, as far as I know John Deere's has a huge initiative right now with how many data scientists they're going to hire and things. And I think that's a clear indication that they're actually going to do something with the data. What we're seeing out there in that middle market, and even up to maybe the $100 million shipper, which would equate to about $10 billion in revenue size company, they all want data because they know they're supposed to get it, because they picked up the latest FreightWaves blog or whatever. They know they're supposed to have to do something with data, but what are they going to do with it? A lot of times, believe it or not, a lot of innovation is killed within the company itself in the bureaucracy of fighting between departments. So I think it really starts, one of the limiting factors where we're at, I think, comes from enterprise leadership, and we're starting to see that change, where they're embracing the data. They're embracing what they're going to actually do with the data, and then it makes sense to capture it, analyze it. And the interesting thing about data is once you start to get data, you realize, oh my gosh, I need a lot more data now. And that's kind of innovation through analytics. But and then the last piece, regarding blockchain, I think I do think it's very far away, and I think the leader of that, the one that's going to make it reality, is going to come from outside this industry. I think that's pretty clear, because it's very difficult to ask the people that have been in business, the big technologies that have been here, the leaders, that have 1990s platforms, to now push us all to agree on standards and things. It's kind of quasi-revolution of the EDI in the 1970s. There was some, negotiating of standards and things like that, and I think we'll go through that period. But it's going to come from a big player outside the industry. I would encourage all of you to start looking at watching Saudi Arabia. Well, the things they're doing in blockchain, I think, is real. I think they're about the only one that I think can really actually make this happen quickly, because they can just force people to do it. But ultimately, they are doing some cool things, and some centralized data collection in conjunction with IBM, and so if the United States probably is maybe last in that of all of us kind of collecting together to come together on standards. But it's happening. The technology's there. It's a matter of, are we going to embrace it? Are we all going to agree, and are we all going to get on the same page?
Now that's interesting. So I'll challenge that a little bit, and maybe ask the other panelists to give your thoughts. But you had mentioned that what Saudi Arabia is doing with blockchain, right? So obviously with blockchain, a challenge is adoption, right? So you need uniformity, adoption, and scale, and that adoption to create that ecosystem obviously is where you'll get the network effect and that type of value from it. Obviously with our fragmented market here in the States and what that looks like, that's a bit more challenging with the myriad of providers that are in the mix. But you made a point earlier about ripping out the architecture. That's the part I'd like to challenge. What is the reality of being able to rip out this old architecture and put in the new versus supplementing it with SaaS products and cloud? And what is kind of that balance between the right amount of we have to keep our legacy infrastructure because that's important to our business and that runs our day-to-day, versus, well, we can't rip that out, but let's supplement it with this new technology that's out there. Because change is scary and it's expensive and it's risky, right? So, anyone can take this. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we have had the good fortune of being, oftentimes for many of our customers, the first fleet management system they've ever deployed on the SMB side. So there is nothing to replace. It is, we're able to collect first-party data, get in there. We've essentially established a standard, and that creates consistency in terms of how that data gets applied and then used, on top. And then for those who are switching, and we've got some of the largest fleets in the country, asset-based carriers, for hire and private, that are now switching from their legacy fleet management system to Keep Truckin'. And they have an expectation. There's a certain legacy technology, but we do replace it, and we then allow them to leverage that data and integrate it with a really comprehensive set of web services and webhooks to be able to actually integrate it into their business applications in a really seamless way. And so I think because we've been carrier focused and really on the supply side, we've been, and because the mandate created sort of a fresh slate, we've had the opportunity to really build from scratch and create consistency from day one. Which I am excited about the potential of the follow-on applications on top of that consistent data.
That's great. So we've got just about a minute left here, and I'd like to throw out one more question. And tomorrow being the BITA Symposium as it relates to blockchain, Dave, I'll throw this one at you, and then obviously anyone participate. But in terms of deal flow, I'm trying to extract out what you don't want to invest in, and I'm trying to throw one of those at you. But blockchain right now, are you interested in companies where blockchain is their primary focus? Maybe they supplement it by trying to become part of an ecosystem. What are your thoughts on that for right now? And then perhaps, Brad, you want to talk about your thoughts on that in the future? And got about a minute left.
I think you have to be interested in blockchain because there's clearly a use case and a need. One qualifier, I'm not investing, I'm advising. So I think when I'm looking for when I'm looking for companies, it's challenging in this room. Everybody here, by nature of being here, you're tech forward, you're a tech innovator. We're still in the second or third inning of this change. Most people in this room are ready for the 7th, 8th, 9th inning,
right.
Extra innings maybe. But I think blockchain, autonomous vehicles, those are really still early days. You have to be interested in them. You have to try to find use cases, and you have to pick the right horses. I don't have that visibility yet. Sorry, I left you 20 seconds.
All right, well, guys, thank you for attending the session. The last notes I want to leave you on, or last thoughts I want to leave with you is, look at transportation technology as the lifeblood of any organization going forward. Today, TMSs basically dump the data at the end of the decision tree. Okay? Going forward, it's the only possible way a company is going to have full connectivity with their vendors, with their purchasing department, with their production, with their sales department, with customer service, shipping, finance. It's transportation is it. It's the lifeblood of the organization, and the right TMS infrastructure of the future will provide that full connectivity of the organization and truly be the one to distribute information throughout the entire organization and get it out of those silos.
Fascinating stuff. Thank you so much. Thank you to our panel. Please give them a nice applause, and thank you.